today's speaker lives on a ranch called the Overlook Ranch, originally called the Hitchens Ranch, near Milner, which is in between Steamboat and Hayden. Her great-grandparents, James and Emma Hitchens, homesteaded on 160 acres. They immigrated from England in 1886, 7, I don't know for sure.
Yep.
A long
Close
time
enough.
ago.
Yeah.
And operated the ranch. The ranch is still owned and operated by Hitchens family. It's a centennial ranch, meaning it's been in operation for over 100 years. Diane currently owns it, and she can tell you more about the name and her family. So we're very honored to have her in from the ranch today. She's going to be talking about the ranch, about her family, and then more specifically about family anecdotes and about her uncles.
Uncle and father.
Uncle and father.
Yeah.
The Hitchens brothers, who are very well-known characters here in Steamboat Springs. So.
Characters. Oh, I'm so glad you did that word. Because you don't hear my opening sentence. Okay.
Well, great. So let's turn it over to Diane. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. The reason I approached the museum is because they didn't have much history on the Hitchens brothers because of the Hitchens brothers jumping series. So I said, I already have all this stuff together. So first of all, the Hitchens brothers, we're going to talk a little about ranching and skiing. They went hand in hand back then. All the ranchers actually started the ski hill. They had a winter job and a summer job. So if you like to click. Oh.
Wasn't I supposed to do that? Want me to go back?
Oh, great. Love technology. Shoot. Yeah, let's start over. Because, let's go home. Yeah, because it's supposed to start from the very start. And it's not doing it. So where do we go back? Oh my gosh, would you just bear with me a second? We'll just run through this really quick. I think my son was looking at it. I had it at the start, you know how you're just going to be super prepared. And I think he was going through it. Oh my God, this is cool. Okay, this is your preview. Look at all these pictures. I hope you aren't taping this part.
The cliff note.
Yeah.
You can edit it out.
Okay, we'll edit it out. Oh my God. Can you believe this? And I have tons of pictures too. Oh my God. It's towards the end.
There's not like a reset.
I don't know.
Thank you.
I've never had to reset this. I always just end it and
Just
then
goes.
Yeah, we're almost there. Okay, here we go. We're almost there. Phew. Okay.
Okay.
Now we can go forward. So sorry, boy. My son's gonna get it, June. So the Hitchens brothers. What can you say about the Hitchens brothers? This is my dad on the left. Errol, Melvin's on the right. These two characters, one thing they had in common was they loved life. They knew how not to take life too seriously, and they could always laugh at themselves. So now we'll go. The story begins. Click. This actually shows a little bit more. This is the dirt road, Highway 40. And right up here was the first homestead. This is the actual stage route above it. So that's the homestead. That's the building in front of it. They had a Pool post office. It was named Pool because my grandfather thought he could take water clear back from Lake Windermere about a mile around the edge of the hill, and then make it irrigate down into a pool. Well, it was a bust because he lost more water than he got around. Let's see, click. This is the actual family. The two very severe looking characters in the front are from England. He was a poor coal miner, went to Central City, came back to England, married her. The firstborn child over here was born in England, worked in Central City on ore contracts till he could get enough money to come to the promised land, Routt County. And they squatted on 160 acres. They had 2 kids die in Central City as infants. All the rest of the kids lived, so you know how bad it must have been in a mining town. The youngest is Albert with the arrow. That's my grandfather. Albert He was a dancing man. He loved all the dances. All the girls were after him. I had like 100 postcards. Well, he meets the train for the new school teacher for the Fairplay Schoolhouse, and she just happened to stay with his sister, and within 3 months they were married. She was from Iowa. Her mother got on the train right away and wanted to come out and see what kind of Westerner this man married. Everyone asked Albert, "Why'd you get married so soon?" He said, "Well, how do you know anybody till you were married to him anyway?" It lasted till she died when she was 50. She had a hemorrhage stroke, but they had a marriage that long and it lasted. Okay? Here he is as an older man. Here she is as an older lady. And this is the Hitchens brothers. Dorothy and Melvin, I have to point, sorry. Dorothy and Melvin were only 2 years apart, and then 8 years elapsed. Then along came Wilma, and then my dad was the baby. So it was kind of like almost having two families. Okay? Ranching. And click it again. Melvin was born up in another homestead besides the one that was going where the stage route is. Albert had a little L-shaped house. This is the cream shed, and that is the root cellar. And they were all born at home.
Sorry.
That's fine, go ahead.
Okay.
They were all born at home. This is back in the draw. I don't know what these ladies are doing, but they're picking something. I'm thinking it's yarrow or herbs. And you just grab the babies and the old ladies and grab the blankets. Next. Everyone has to have a picture in front of Fish Creek Falls. Next. He's the baby. Melvin hated overalls. He hated them. So he would go down to Milner to the schoolhouse. There's a little road back there, and so he would tuck them in, get them all just so, and put a rope around his waist and tie it. And when he got home for chores, he would reconstruct it. Next. This is his cousin, Jim Maines. They did lots of chores, and life was hard on a ranch, but they always had time to go hunting. Next. Breaking in horses. Melvin loved horses. I think he was born on a horse, and he almost died on a horse. I mean, he rode clear up into his 70s. This is a pack trip that they took when they were 10. They headed to Long Lake. They didn't make it, but they had a great time on the way. They ate all their supplies and camped on the way. Next.
Just the two of them?
Yep, just the two of them, 10 years old. This is a ranching picture that I think is interesting because they're sitting on a pile of rocks. Ranching here was very hard because you had stone boats and you picked rocks all your life. And I am a testimony to this. I never want to see another stone boat or a rock in my life. Next. This is Melvin in front of the root cellar. It has a padlock on it, and I didn't realize that until I scanned it. And I know why the padlock's there. Because Melvin and Errol said after school, they would sneak into the cellar and get into the jam. They'd steal bread, jam. You know how hungry you are after school? So they would steal the jam. So I'm assuming that's why the padlock is on there. Next. I showed this picture to Melvin when he was 81 years old, and he started laughing. I go, "What's so funny about that? What's going on?" My dad has the little short jeans going on there, and his dad is putting a tongue in the cultivator. Melvin looks down, he goes, "Well, that was because of me." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I was up on the cultivator up in the lane, and I was doing my work, and I was coming down the lane for lunch, and there was a lard can in the way. And I thought, I wonder if I could run over that lard can." See those big metal, they're great big old metal wheels. He not only ran over it, it got stuck in the spoke. Clank, 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 all the way down, and had to run away, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Got through the gate, the horses got through the gate, broke the tongue off on the gate, horses took off. Albert, this guy right here, Albert comes running, "Are you hurt? Are you hurt?" Melvin's going, "I think so. I think so." And he was so worried about him. If he would have told his dad that he was messing around and he did the lard can, he would have got a switching. So he goes, "I got out of a switching that day." And it was a borrowed cultivator. They had, yeah. So here's Albert and Melvin on horses. Back then, you were just putting in fences. They had the Grange Association, and you rode for cattle clear up to Wyoming. So they spent a lot of time in that position. Next. There's Melvin as a young man. All the girls were after him. He was quite the town playboy. Next, there's his car. The next one is, there's Melvin and Betty Lockhart. There he goes. Ooh. Okay. 1944 war, he was in the service in the Air Force. He flew B-41 bombers, had a little stint there. And next, he graduated from CU with a degree in English. He wanted to write. He submitted to Reader's Digest, all these papers. He did write a book. Everyone for 10 years asked him how his book was coming, and they finally gave up. And he finally completed a book, but it's like an autobiography. But he never had it published. I found this in his mementos. This is I'll give credit to Ace Reed. He's a cartoonist. Says, he needs to nap a little bit before he starts doing nothing. Okay? Why this applies to Melvin is, in some other writings, he has these writings saying, if I could just figure out how not to work, if I could just not figure out how to work anymore, right? So he was an entrepreneur, though. He tried so many things. I remember, because he'd try them, and then I'd have to follow along and do them with him. So he had land over by Milner, and he strip-mined it and got his first little fortune to do his lifestyle of sitting around and drinking, and he loved to drink. He was a regular at the sidestep, and he loved to chase the girls. And then he, after the spoil piles were there, he had all these ponds, so he decided to order all these trout. We'll have a trout farm. Well, he didn't realize that they need a real fast-flowing stream, so his 10,000 trout went belly up. And then he was a belly up. It was the stinkiest mess you ever saw. And then he was a real estate agent for a while. And then he got into the jukebox business in Denver and went all around. We ended up with a jukebox and his bowling machine in our basement. And then he worked for the Forest Service one summer, and he found all these little ponderosa pine cones. And he sent away to a company and had them all, these little cards made up, the legend of the lodgepole, the legend of the lodgepole pine. And he had me one summer, he paid me a penny a piece to put those things in a little sleeve and put the little, and he was going to sell them all over town and all over the country and have these card racks of the legendary lodgepole pine, because apparently they don't open up unless they have fire. So his directions were really funny. It says, get your pine cone and hold it in one hand. Hold the match up, but not too close to burn your fingers. So thank God it never took off. I think he probably would have been sued. Next. Here he is later in life. He owns Snake Island, which is over, how do you explain that? Kind of by the Ironside Inn.
Iron Horse.
Iron Horse Inn, yes. Please, anyone correct me, too, because I'm standing in front of a crowd of some amazing historians here. So correct me if you ever say anything. And I mean, he had horses till the day he died. He didn't ride much in the last days, but he lived for horses and women. Okay. He did. He took this self-portrait at 60 because he didn't think he was going to make it to 61. And he lived to be 84. Okay, next. This is the Cove Bar. This is Melvin. I thought that was interesting. So basically Melvin, Sari Vitaler wrote a book, The History of Skiing, and then she has the little biographies in the back. And it says Melvin Hitchens, 1923, affectionately dubbed Steamboat Springs' oldest ski bum. He sponsored the Wednesday Night Jump Series, contributed more than $100,000 to the Winter Sports Club since 1976, and when he got this money by billing the county to use a road access across his property for the dump. And later he sold the dump to Les Lyman and made his second fortune, right? So he said it funded equipment, passes, and hot chocolate for youngsters at the Howelson Hill. He began skiing on Montgomery Ward skis purchased by his father Albert when he was 2 years old, and he was a B-class competitor in high school. He loved jumping. We'll get to that later. Although he seldom finished milking cows early enough to ride the sled 13 miles into town. He maintains offices at the sidestep, which is a bar. Yeah. So he was a really fun character. Now on the flip side, we had his younger brother Harold, which would be my dad. My dad was born to farm. He worked hard all his life, scrimped and saved, and he was just born to farm. In fact, his first picture was taken in a field, which I think is very appropriate. Next. There he is, a little kid. Isn't he cute? And I have more stories about Harold because he was my dad. So unfortunately, Melvin kind of got left out a little. On this picture, this is about school age. Dad went to school in Milner, and he had a hard time getting home from school. And he got so many switchings from his mother. His mother was an ex-school teacher, and he told me later in life that she was quite the psychologist. So he couldn't get home to school on time. So one day she met him at the door. She says, Harold, I've been a bad mother. I've been a bad mother. I can't get you to come home from school on time, so I need the switching today. She went out on the cottonwood tree, got a switch, brought it in, and said, here, I need a whipping. I need a bit of bad mother. She bent over, and she goes, hit me! And he says he could still remember the big crocodile tears. I'm gonna do that, Mom! Hit me again, hit me again. He said it was a long time before he came home from school. But he said, you know, if I had it to do over again, she had those great big corsets with those metal stays. I would have given her hell. Okay. He had lots of chores to do. This is actually his older sister, but they had a bunch of skim milk calves. When you have milk cows, you have to feed the calves and get them in the barn. And his job was to get the hay, the loose hay out of the hay mow, get it in each individual manger, put a gallon of grain in there. Well, he was always late doing his chores too. I think it's because he was the youngest or whatever, but he hated chores, but he was always doing his chores. And one day he was trying to run these milk cows into this one little door, and they kept running by. And he'd chase them, and he'd run by again. And he got so mad that the next time they ran by, he picked up a great big rock, and he hit the lead calf square in the head. The thing dropped. Now he's scared. He goes, oh God, I killed the calf, I killed the calf. So he runs in the house and he hides. He goes, well, this won't do. I'm supposed to be going out and doing my chores. Oh, I know. Maybe if I just wait on my chores, maybe my dad will discover that calf and won't know what happened. So he waited around. Albert says, get out there and do your chores. I will. Bounced the ball on the edge of the house. Get out and do your chores. I will. Well, pretty soon he got a switching, a spanking, and he went out, and his dad's dragging him out there going, you got to get your chores done on time. And he's like dragging around the corner of the barn, and he goes like this, and no calf. He had just knocked it out. And he goes, dang it, I got a switching for nothing. It's the only time I really did get a switching for nothing. This old jug-headed horse is Brownie. That's actually me on the horse, but my dad was raised on it. That horse lived to be 33 years old. Wow. Well, Dad rode the horse to Milner to school, and it was the finest horses ever. He bragged on it. He bragged to all these boys, and he says, the boys are going, that's not such a good horse. He goes, oh, it's a great horse. I'll bet I could ride right up those steps into the schoolhouse. And they bet him. And he did. He had such a fantastic horse. He rode right up the steps into the schoolhouse, turned the horse around, and the horse took a big dump. And he said it was another switching again. He just couldn't quite stay out of that. This is his older sister, Wilma. They decided that they didn't like home, and they announced to their mother they were running away from home. So being a good psychologist, she said, okay, I think you need to experience the big outside world. She packed them sandwiches, she rolled it up, she put it up in a little bandana, put it on a pole just like a hobo. Kissed him goodbye and said, have a great life. Sent them out on their way. And they were headed towards Milner. They got halfway to Milner, and there's a big culvert. They're really fun. They echo. They stopped there for a while, and they took sticks and dinged on it. They filled it full of rocks, crawled in it. Pretty soon they were hungry, so they said, maybe we should eat lunch. So they sat down, ate their whole lunch, used the napkin, and then they were thinking, the world's that way, home's that way. You know, home's not looking so bad. So they snuck back in, and their mom never said a word. let's see. This is just a picture of Errol. There was some other school stories. Mr. Luby was the school teacher. He was a pretty hard taskmaster, and my dad he loved 1st through 4th grade, but after that he didn't have time for studying. And he got in a lot of trouble, he says. Well, one time they were snowballing the girls. He said the snow was perfect for snowballing, and they were just really getting on the girls. Well, of course, you know girls, and they go in and they tattletale. So Mr. Luby came out, and he stood on the top step, and he goes, "The next one that throws a snowball is going to get the hose." Well, he had an actual rubber hose that he would spank kids with. Sorry. So he turns around to go back in the schoolhouse, and right in line in front of Mr. Luby is Marion Moore, and she looks at Errol and goes, "Nah, nah, nah, nah," and Errol let go. And it hit, and she ducked, and it hit Mr. Luby in the back of the head. He goes, "Trouble again." Got another switching. Okay. This is a binder. It binds wheat. You can see them coming out where they're bound in sheaves. And they used horses clear up until, late 30s. Well, when the war was on, there weren't a lot of men around, so my dad was in 8th grade, and they had gone to a tractor, so it would have been hooked in front of a big old farm tractor. He was too little. He was only in 8th grade, and he had a hard time with the tractor, so they put an extension on the brake so he could grab it. And to stop the tractor, Albert would sit in the back on that seat, and he'd watch the binder, and he'd watch it tie, and then Dad was in front of the tractor. So it worked great for a while, because when Albert would say, "Whoa," when it quit tying, then Dad would take both feet, he'd get on the tractor seat, he'd put in both feet, put the clutch in, and then he'd hit it out of gear, and then he'd stand up and pull the brakes. He had to do 3 things, right? And it was quite a feat, but he could do it, and he was real proud of himself. Well, they started down over the hill by Morris's, which would be that gravel pit out here. They started down the hill, and it quit tying. And Albert goes, "Whoa!" So Dad puts both feet in, kicks it, goes like this. He couldn't hold the brake. And you couldn't believe how they were cutting wheat all the way down. And Albert's on the back, and he's holding on to the seat like this, and he always wore big floppy hats, and his hat's going like this. He's going, "Whoa, damn it, whoa, damn it." And Dad, so they get to the bottom of the hill, and Dad's thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get a spanking." And Albert gets off, and he goes, "You did a good job, son. I'll never tell you whoa on a hill again." Because he knew he was too little. This is the Grange Hall. Mary knows a lot about this.
Yeah, we had fun.
A lot of fun. You might even be in there. I don't know. The Grange Hall, they had dances all the time. They had dances in Milner, McGregor. Every little community would put on a dance. When my dad was little, the boys would go outside and play. Nellie Soash lived up the draw. Nellie Soash made the best cherry pies ever. She always brought 2. Well, when it came time to eat pie, there was only 1 pie there. Well, Dad and his little buddies would take 1 pie, take it out behind, and eat it all up. And then they were smart enough that when the pie was served, after it was served, they'd slip the pie tin back in. She never knew who was eating her pie. Okay, next one. There's Dad, and he was just as cocky as any teenager, and he got his first car. And he was staying out, dancing with the girls, coming home just in time for milking. And Albert was giving him a lecture one day. Dad had had enough of that. I'm sure he was about 16, and he turned around and mumbled, and he said, Albert was telling him about he was spending too much gas. And Errol turns around, and he goes, "You're such a penny pincher. You'd probably pinch Lincoln in the face till he was red." He said, "That was the first beating I got when I was older." Next. Okay, on the left is Bud Carey. The middle is Darwin Lockhart, and then Diane Hitchens. And Bud Carey was Dad's best friend, my dad's best friend. And Errol loved school, but after Milner, he had to come into Steamboat. And he hated school. They called him a dumb foreigner. He smelled funny, and so he quit school. Then he took a year and a half off and fed cows and stayed and worked with his dad. And he goes, well, this isn't the life for me. So then he started in Hayden schools. And he had a 41 Ford, and he was responsible for picking up 4 or 5 students on the way so they could get to Hayden. And Bud Carey was one of them. Bud Carey had Spanish first hour, Dad had study hall first hour, so in the winter, you can't believe how many times they purposely went into the ditch and had someone pull them out and go, oh, we got stuck, and they never got in trouble for that. Okay. Korean War broke out, he joined up, he got his GED in the Army, he became a photography specialist. They put him in Arkansas for, oh, I can't remember where.
Chappie.
Probably. And he goes, I want to see some action. So they sent him to Guam. And he pretty much sat on Guam and did little passes, photography passes and all that. Next one. And they swam and they got fat. That's about all he saw of war. So, next one. So that's kind of the life of Harold Hitchens. So Melvin loved horses, lived for horses all his life. My dad was raised on a horse, worked really hard, and his whole philosophical rendition of a horse is the front bites, the back kicks, and the middle is damned uncomfortable. So after he retired and didn't have to ride a horse anymore, he didn't ride a horse. So that's a huge difference between the two. Next. This is just the epitome of my dad and what a great dad and how much they had fun. That's a woodchuck. He lived under those granaries. We fed him apples. We had pets. I had a pet magpie. I mean, my dad took me everywhere skiing. He was just the most amazing dad that way. Because he didn't act like a taskmaster dad. He was fun. Next. And in the 70s, we fed cows, and that was his favorite team. Okay. Then we go on to skiing. Next. Here's the Hitchens brothers. Harold's on the left. He liked to be called Hitch. Melvin's on the right. Melvin liked to be called Hitch also. My dad, they made 2 major contributions to skiing, I think. My dad did the blood, sweat, and tears part. He volunteered and he worked. My uncle Melvin had the monetary means to contribute financially. So they had 2 niches that dovetailed, and they spent their whole lives on the ski hill in the winter. Next. So, go one more. This is in Melvin's own handwriting. It says, my 2 vices, skis and she's. And that lady is actually Bostock. Her name is Brookshire. Now, artist. That's artist. I knew you guys would know that. That's artist Brookshire. They were a couple and they were going to get married in high school. Okay, next one.
But they didn't.
Nope. Melvin Melvin got married once to Mary Dean. They had a 2-year, and when his little girl was 2, they got divorced, and he never really got to see his daughter until she was older. There he is in his Steamboat Springs Ski Club. He was part of the ski club in the jumping ski club for a couple years. Number 44. And there he is in his older age jumping. It's kind of a bad picture, but probably he's in his 40s or 50s. And next. Winter Carnival. Does anybody know what he's doing there?
Ringing Spear.
Yes! Can you explain ring and spear to these people? Do you want to? No?
Well, you had that long piece of wood there, and you were being pulled behind a horse. They had various standards, about 5 standards within a block. Well, you can see one just behind you on
Here's
the
the
left
pole.
side there. And there was a ring made out of rope. So if you were being pulled up the road, you had to get that spear to take the ring off the standard. And they timed you, and every ring that you missed, they added seconds onto your time.
Excellent description. Next. They did a lot of skiing on rabbit ears. I don't have any action photos, but they cross-countryed and they'd hike up and ski down. And they did a lot of skiing with Johnny Munger, which would be this lady's dad. Next. Here's the famous picture. Mary Munger, this is her dad right here. So we have Lloyd and Evelyn Munger that live out on Elk River. We have Melvin. He hated smoking. He was a chain smoker. He hated smoking. Finally gave it up later in life. Don't know the next two, and Johnny Munger on the left.
But
What?
Gilbert was supposed to be there so far.
Oh, well then we'll talk about that. Melvin financed his skiing. That's all you can say. He lived to finance skiing, and he always had the best Bogner, however you say it, pants, the best equipment, and the best down jackets. Pretty good looking there. Here is the actual check that he wrote to the Winter Sports Club. The smaller jumps needed repair, and so he wrote, I'll try to read it to you. He typed on it. I mean, this is really weird. It says, "I'm Melvin Hitchens, in honor of Gordy Wren Sr. and Gordy Wren Jr., and all those who ride the wind and all the friends who pay to watch, I hereby donate the sum of this check to start building a ski lift to the smaller slopes on Halson Hill, $5,000. And damn it, do it as cheap as you can. To the order of SSWC." I don't know how to even cash that, but it went through. Yeah. And there he is in his older life. Here's the iconic hat. And look at these. You guys remember these?
Diane, hang on, I'm sorry, I can't get off that.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, good job.
I can't. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
It's just,
do it again.
Here. All right, let's do it for the picture. Act stupid. Okay.
That's great.
Next is on the flip side, Harold. Okay, he contributed. We'll get into that later. Here's the ski jump, but the reason I like it is here's the boat tow. How you went up. Dad told me a story about where he went into skiing. He says, I'm going to say it in the first person. He goes, I would get up early in the morning, like 5 or 6 in the morning, ski down to Milner, catch the train, take the train in to the depot here, hike up Sulphur Cave Hill, put my skis on, ski down, get my ticket, and I'd ski the mile run and ski Halson all day long. Said I didn't like the face that much because I had such big skis and I only had rubber. I had a toe piece you put in and then used a rubber strap to go around your toe to your boot. So it was really hard to turn them. But he said the mile run was amazing, and he'd jump and jump and jump until it was almost dark. Then he'd hike up Sulphur Cave, go down, get on the train, go to Milner. He had to wait 3 hours in Steamboat before it made the Milner trip. So he says, boy, a kid's gotta want to ski when you want to do that.
Can you talk about the boat tow a little bit for people who may not know
Oh,
what that is?
the boat tow was, well, it was kind of a contraption. It actually looked like a boat, and it had wooden seats, and it had a cable. Three wooden seats? Good. See, this is before my time.
Yeah, it's 3 wooden seats. And
3 wooden seats,
yeah.
and then they pulled it up with a great big cable.
And how far did it go up?
Just
all the way up.
to the top of this hill right here. Do you know anything about it?
Well, I mean, just that, and then basically one of the not so great parts about it is
Yeah,
that it would form
it did.
these ruts as it went
Oh,
up,
yeah, it would
and
buck.
so they'd say it was kind of like a bucking bronco,
Yeah.
and there's
Yes.
there's kind of a legend that kids in the sports club skied fast in order for them to be able to get back on the boat tow and ride the
3
bucking
people.
boat tow.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's one I haven't heard. Yeah, I could
I
see.
remember that.
There were two boats,
Right.
and one was going up as the other was coming down.
Right.
So it was just on one continuous
Yeah.
cable.
That's what I was going to ask too, because there's 2 tracks there.
Yeah.
Yep. This is at Winter Carnival. We still do. They did them back then. I think it's interesting that Kremling is 55. They had the signs Colorado US 40 behind.
Pretty.
And his name is Gumdrop. I don't know why. Okay. And there's Harold on another statue with a little girl in front of Wilson's Appliances.
That's neat.
Is it Wilson's? And
What block was that on?
Yeah, what block is that on?
do you guys know?
guys.
I think
Yeah.
that's actually further lights are on the left, but I'm not positive. Building on the left.
The FM lights right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
What year is that
Just
about?
dump the water.
Sorry. Harold was born in 31, so I would say he's a teenager there, probably 44, 43, 44. I thought that was funny, the two
Yeah.
smiles.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the train depot. I was supposed to tell the ski story then. Go ahead. There he is. This is my only ski picture, younger, of Harold, on top of Halcyon Hill there. Okay. Then, that's the Thunderhead lift, right? Harold was having a hard time farming, and most ranchers would work at the ski hill for income too. So he started as a tow operator over at Halcyon Hill. They gave you a free ski pass to Mount Werner. Well, he had to be to work from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. So guess what he was doing? He's going over and making sure his pass was used. And then he's thinking, well, this is stupid. Why don't I just get on at the ski hill and live there? Because I love skiing so much. So in 1963, the Forest Service mandated that they have 2 paid ski patrolmen. So Harold and Lloyd Patterson were the first 2 paid ski patrolmen. Guess how much they got paid an hour? $1.75 an hour. And they took, Dad says they took 33 people off the mountain. Another book says 86 that year. But his first day, that's okay. His first day on the job wasn't being a ski patrolman. They put in the Thunderhead lift here. He was in charge of taking the lead cable up so that they could string the cable. And then the rest of the week they put on the chair guards, and they actually clipped on all these chairs. So that's my dad and my mom. It was a skiing event. We all were raised on that mountain. So then, I know you guys know some of these. Okay. Harold Hitchens, Schnackenberg,
Okay.
Dr. Richard Hughes,
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Hughes.
Hugh Richards.
Hugh Richards, sorry. Does anyone know any of those other ones? I don't know 'em. But, because I was a little kid, I didn't pay attention. Kicked it again.
Yeah, you did.
Anyway, going ahead. He also headed up the 59th Winter Carnival. He was very involved with the Winter Sports Club, and I got the opportunity to ski because of that and race for a while. And next, there's the 2 ski patrolmen on concentration. I mean, look how tall their skis were. And we had big skis back then. This was his actual patrol skis. And then the next one, all of them wore those rust-colored parkas. Gerald Turax was also a ski patrolman. Harold and Gerald. What can you say about them? They were like twins. Well, they hardly got any time off to actually recreational ski. So the boss, Merle Nash, says, you know what? You guys just go out and take a run. It's fine. So here they are on right under the Christie chairlift where everyone can see. And back then, you had the big skis and you did the big turns like this. Back and across the mountain. Pick up speed, pick up speed. The cardinal sin of a ski patrolman is to hit anybody, right? Oh my gosh. So here's Gerald and here's Harold. Wham! And they hit so hard it knocked them silly. All their skis were off, their goggles, everything, and they're scared to death. They think they've hit a paying customer. They're like, are you okay? Are you okay? And they're gathering everything up, and they look up and they start laughing. Guess who was on the lift? Burl Nash saw them. Their boss. Yeah, they didn't get fired, but they got a chewing out. Okay. It was a great ride. That's the end. So, that ski-doo, wow.
That ski probably worked too.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments or other
Yeah, Diane, other than their time in the military, did your father and uncle talk about traveling outside of Colorado or outside the country at all?
Yes, Melvin went down to Cabo San Lucas, stayed on the beaches, watched the girls. My dad never, let's see, where did he go? He traveled all over the United States, but he never really got out of the States. And then mostly Mexico, I think. Why do you ask?
I'm just curious, because sometimes when I'm listening to a presentation on someone who grew up in Rock County, it's the whole story takes place in Rock County, and I just kind of wonder
Yeah,
how they're related to the outside.
Melvin traded houses with a guy in Laguna Beach in '77 so that the people in Laguna Beach could come here and ski. So he made it to the West Coast that year, and then he was on the beach. But I think people travel more now, but back then you really were raised in a county, and you stayed in the county. And you might have gone a state or two away for a little while and done a few stints, but yeah. They're fourth generation. I mean, they're third generation, I'm fourth. And I haven't been a whole lot of places either. Yeah.
Where was the Grange building?
The Grange Hall was Route County 44. It's called Elk River Road.
Yeah.
Where
Like
the
if you head up towards the airport and go west,
Sherrod's place is.
Oh, Sharon?
Sherrod's place.
If you know
Yeah.
where the Sherrod's place is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's really hard for us ranchers because we go turn at the Grange Hall. That thing hasn't been there. Or go turn at Potato Cellar Road. The Potato Cellar hasn't been there since what, 30s? 30s, yeah. That's really hard.
Can you talk about your dad and your mom and you and
Oh, Dad, Mom,
other
I mean?
kids?
Your brother.
Okay. Well, I think it's interesting that my dad had 9 lives because he got married in 1954. I came along in May of '56. He was working on the oil rigs by Toe Creek, and they had a gas explosion, and he got burned, back of his arms, his face, and he was in the hospital, in the Soland Hospital in Hayden for 16 weeks, and thank God for antibiotics. And he just got over that. They sent him home, and he still had bandages that they had to take care of. But 3 days later, got an appendicitis attack and his appendix burst. Back in the hospital again, and he spent I don't know how many weeks there with that. They operated right away, and it was, of course, had burst and he had got peritonitis. It's a miracle he lived. He said, you know, there were days when I laid in that hospital bed and I was like, oh please, can I just die now? Can I just die now? He said the pain was horrible. And then one day he looked up one afternoon, and he looked up, and there was his mom and his grandma nodding to him, and he's going, oh good, I get to join you. You know, and he's like, take me. And they're nodding and nodding. He said it was just as real as to me. He says, I don't know if I was delirious or if it was real, but they were nodding. And he said, then they went away. And he said, I was so doggone mad, and then his fever broke, and the next day he was better, and he was on the mend. Isn't that weird? So here he has just gotten married and financed a little trailer. He's financed a car. He has hospital bills from me. Now he has hospital bills from all 16 weeks and the peritonitis. So basically, if it wasn't for the 2 sets of grandparents, they would have never made it. It took him 2 or 3 years. Well, he got a really good job at Union Carbide in Craig, west of Craig. It was by Maybell. And he helped survey it for this plant, and then they assayed ore. And then he got to be an assayer and he made tons of money, and then he got all his bills paid off. As soon as he got all the bills paid off, they said, we are shutting down this plant. Would you like to go to Arkansas? He said, I think not. I think I'll go back to ranching. Well, my mom was born in Hayden, and she was a sorority girl, a socialite, really just loved people. He moved her to a ranch in the middle of nowhere. She was very unhappy for many years, but towards the end you couldn't get her off the ranch. She loved ranching then. And she worked as a ticket person at the ski hill in my high school years. And I grew up, it's so weird. It's so weird with the mountain now because I walk out there and you're a number, and I grew up on that mountain. So I've had to get over that entitlement issues because my dad lived on the mountain, my mom worked at the ticket office, my dad was ski patrolman, I could go in any building I wanted. It was a very small family affair. You hardly got any skiing done because you're talking and waving to everybody, and spent many, many hours. We had a game we played on the run, I can't think of the run, at the ski hill, the long one. That's the road. The road, yeah. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, thank you. On Why Not, Melvin, Errol, me, my brother, and my mom would play tractor. We'd get in a snowplow, we'd put our ski poles on the top of our bindings, and then we would steer. Well, the tourists looked at us like we were nuts, but we had a great train going. So, I mean, I had an awesome childhood because I actually lived and worked and played where my parents were. Yeah. And I was a great little ski racer for a while until I decided to tuck the landing of the 90-meter jump. In slalom skis on Carnival, you're supposed to have downhill skis like this long, and I had skis that long. Kim McNeil and I tucked the landing, and I fell in the cup. And that's back when the skis had those long straps that were attached to your shin. And I fell, and I just remember stopping, and I had one ski off and one ski stuck like this, and my foot was that way and my knee was that way. And I started screaming, and my dad said, "Please, I am a National Ski Patrolman. I don't ever haul one of my kids off." Guess who was volunteering that day? And he had to haul me to a hospital, screaming. I'm a whiner. I don't do pain well. I screamed and cried and screamed. And Dr. Richards actually said it, and it was like in 8 places. And he went in 2 or 3 times and just manipulated it by hand, and then we had to recast it and recast it. Well, he went on vacation, and I got down and went clunk, and then I'm like, my ankle's sitting on the floor, and my knee is up here, and it's, and they didn't believe me. They sent me home with a health nurse, Pitney, Carmelita Pitney, and she'd come every day and look on me, and I'd scream and cry. I wouldn't even get up. And then she finally said, "Take this kid to a psychiatrist or go have it x-rayed." Well, my parents, thank God, had it x-rayed. And it had slipped, so I went out to Denver, and thank God for technology. In 1971, they were just starting to do the pins. And they pinned the top and the bottom, and they stuck out on your cast with knobs. They went clear through your bone and out your skin, and they were cemented in with knobs. And I had a cast on for 6 months, and it was amazing. Yeah, I think if we didn't have that technology, I would have been lame. Yeah. So that was the end of my ski race career. But it was a great ride for a while too. Yeah. Anything else? I could talk for hours, so sorry.
I want to know, tell us about your grandfather moving the house to the ranch.
Oh, yes. I don't have a blown up picture, but you can see it later. The great big ranch that sits on the highway, the ranch house. Oh, I have one great story of Granddad too. Granddad Albert. When he was 17, he wanted to farm, and at that time, his father had moved to Milner because it was going to be the booming town with all the McGregor Coal Company, and it was going to be this booming town, so they decided to move the post office down. Every single building in this Routt County is always moved. Have you noticed people don't burn them down, they just move them in the old days? You always moved them to the best place of transportation. So when the highway went in, of course, they moved all the old homesteads down onto the highway. Well, Albert's dad had died in Milner and had built this great big 2-story house. It was the barber shop, the post office, and the pool house. Well, he bought it from his mother, but he's got to get it up to his ranch. So they wait till winter, and it took 26 head of horses and 4 bobsleds. And they pulled that horse up a mile east and then set it down on blocks. It took them 8 hours. I think it was 1929 that they did that. Wilma was the only kid born in the hospital because they were in the middle of these transition of houses. And then Albert took a scoop with a horse and dug out a basement by hand with that horse and scoop, poured all the concrete foundation, and then rolled the house onto it and set it down.
Is it still there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's in great shape.
Really?
Yeah. And, okay, so Albert was 17, and he wanted to start ranching, and he got a hernia. Well, that's just... So he went out to Denver, and the doctors go, oh, you'll never be a rancher, you can't do hard work. Why don't you find a new profession? So he became a barber. He went to barber school out on 16th Street, came home, became a barber, and then he went... There's no timeline, but he took a special treatment in Kansas City. Rode the train all the way out to Kansas City, had a special treatment for his hernia, was cured. This guy ranched hard all his life, died when he was 93. I mean, even in his 80s, he was helping us fence, and we didn't let him have a horse anymore, so we let him have the Jeep. And we'd go up there for lunch, and he'd take off his gloves, and we go, Albert, your thumb's all bloody. What happened? Did you hit yourself with a hammer? He'd go, well, nobody else would be stupid enough to do that. But when he was 90, he had some prostate problems, and Dad took him into the hospital here, and they did an ultrasound on him, and the doctor comes out and goes, Harold, your father has this big white mass in his abdomen. We don't know what it is. My dad starts laughing, which is really inappropriate, and he says, I know what that is, it's paraffin wax. They pumped him full of paraffin wax to fix his hernia. He lived to be 93. Isn't that something? Yeah. They pumped his abdomen full of paraffin wax.
Why?
For the hernia when he was 17. So they found it on an ultrasound when he was 90-some, and the doctor's going, I don't know what this mass is inside your father. My dad's laughing, going, I know what it is. Yeah.
That's the great hernia cure.
Yes! Isn't that something? And I mean, what? He was born in 1892. So what's the math
So it's
there?
like 1910.
02, yeah, around 1910. Yeah.
I wonder where he was in Kansas City where he was.
I don't know any, that's the only story that's been passed down. I don't know any specifics.
You don't know what they did though?
No, Dad just said they pumped his abdomen full of paraffin wax. That's all. That's all I know. And I mean, this guy put in probably 5 miles of fence on horseback, carrying posts and barbed wire, and ranched all his life. Heavy, heavy labor. Yeah. So, yeah, it's an anomaly for sure. Let's see, what else have I not talked about? I have tons of stories. Oh, Dad hated chickens. Hated chickens. When he was little, he says that you're just stepping in the goo all the time. You had to clean out the chicken coop. You had to gather those stupid eggs. And he said, they're so stupid. You know, they're just stupid. And they're always in your way and you're tripping over them. He says, so what I did was, every time my mom and dad went to town or they weren't looking, I'd pick up a rock and I'd throw it at the chickens, and every once in a while I'd connect and I'd kill them. I just, you know, the little pea brains, I'd kill them. And he's like, well, where do I get rid of the evidence? So he'd take them over to the hog pen and throw them in. The hogs would just, like piranha. Yeah. So mom and dad come home, see all the feathers in the hog pen, they go, well, guess the hog's got another chicken. He said, I cleaned them out pretty good. I mean, we always had chickens, but at least we didn't have as many. So, gosh.
Any background on his first name? Where his namesake was from?
Harold is an old English name. He hated it. He was called Harold, Earl, Errol. So he always went by Hitch. If anyone knew him well, his name was Hitch, for Hitchens. And then the older couple, James and Emma, that came over from England to Central City, we actually have a journal of him when he was a bachelor, and he journaled in there very dry, like, I spent 2 pence on this, 6 pence on that to get over. He took the ship Gellert from Le Havre, France, over, came to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and worked in those mines to get enough money. Then he went to Central City and did a few claims, and there were the 3 Hitchens brothers that came here to this Routt County. But he did a few mining claims over there, but he really made his money on ore contracts. He got teams of horses and carried ore places. And then, I guess it's an old English thing, he saved up enough money to go all the way back to England and marry his sweetheart. He stayed there a year and worked, they had a baby. So then, they get back on this steamship and they come to Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and this little entry says, "We just had our baby 3 weeks ago." Like, these are immigrant houses. I'm sure you stayed with relatives, and I'm sure they were packed in there. And then a few weeks later, this is the only entry that is emotional. He says, "We moved out into our own little house, just to ourselves." And it was like a spring, it was like a fresh drink of Rocky Mountain spring water. So life was hard. And then they came back to Central City with that one little girl, and then they lost 2 kids in infancy, and then they came here. And then their oldest girl that actually survived England, Central City, died in a flu epidemic when she was 12. But the rest of them lived.
Where's that house in Milner that they moved?
It's right before, like when you head towards Milner, and just before you drop into Milner, there's a plateau there, and there's a big brown house on the right, 2-story brown house. It has kind of those little triangle roof things, and a big brown barn. That's the house.
You
Right
mean
there.
right after the speed slowdown?
Just before that.
Yeah.
Just before it, like you'll go past Saddle Mountain Ranch,
Yeah.
and then you go a little straight away, you go up a little rise, and we're the only ranch on the plateau up there on the right. Just before you drop down into Milner as you're going to Hayes.
Well, who owns all that land around Milner that they don't develop?
Camalettes.
Who?
Camaletti and Sons.
What are they?
They are an Italian family, Italian born, or generational Italian family. Frank Camaletti, Ed Camaletti, Rudy Camaletti. And they own all the land around Milner, so that's why Milner never grows. Yeah.
Are they local?
Yeah, they've been here almost as long as us, and they've been in ranching for years and years. And they're really good stewards of the land. I have 1,800 acres, and it makes me look small. They have a lot of land, and they also take care of state land. So,
What is that thing that, on the way to Milner that looks like a bridge up on top of the plateau?
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge.
Does it go over anything?
It used to.
Oh.
yeah, it was over on Elk River, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a guy bought it. I don't know why. It was just up
Put it up there
there.
at the top of the hill?
Does Selby own it? I think Selby owns it, doesn't
Selby.
he?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Let's see what else.
That's been long.
Oh, and something interesting is, my dad, all these open fields back here, there's 300 acres. He farmed wheat, barley, and oats. So I can actually remember when the crops were good because I got better school clothes. You know, when crops were bad, you went and borrowed from the bank, and you had the threat of frost, and you had the threat of hail, threat of drought, and one of the big threats was the elk and the deer. You have this beautiful stand of wheat or grain, and then the elk coming down, and it's not what they eat, it's what they bed down in. And they can take a bed 8 by 10 and just flatten it. Well, then you can't harvest it. So my dad was always fighting with the Division of Wildlife for game damage. Oh, these damn elk, you know, I hate these elk, and he'd run them off, and he'd go out and shoot guns at them, and we had special bombs, and he fought them all his life. Switch generations. I'm the new generation. He put all that stuff in back to grass, and I'm saying, come on down, elk. I have an elk hunting business now. They're my cash crop. Go figure. Yeah, it's weird how in one generation the crop changed. Yeah. And what else? Oh gosh.
Any other questions for Diane? If not, thank you so much.
Yeah,
That was
is
so
an
much
hour.
fun.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.